Good morning, colleagues. I see quorum. Thank you very much for being able to join us on obviously very short notice. This is a meeting number 31 of the Planning and Housing Committee. I'd like to acknowledge that Ottawa is located on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation, whose culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. Ms. Crozier, may I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Chair.
Councillor Curry?
It seems that Councillor Johnson is on Teams, I think. There's some kind of confusion. So I just see she's trying to get on, just so you know, for a roll call.
Thank you. We'll take that into consideration.
Councillor Brockington.
Here.
Councillor Curry.
Here.
Councillor Dudas.
Here.
Councillor Johnson. Councillor Kavanaugh.
Here.
Councillor Kelly.
Here.
Councillor Kitts.
Here.
Councillor Lowe.
Here.
Councillor Tierney.
Present.
Councillor Troster.
Here.
Vice Chair Gower. Chair, you have quorum.
Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of interest this morning? I don't see any. So we'll move straight into the only substantive item today, which is the front-ending report, design and construction for the Gloucester Urban Community Interim Pond 2, sanitary sewer and oversizing of storm sewer. The report went live late yesterday, so I know we've had a chance to read that. I am going to ask Mr. Moody to give us an overview of what we're discussing this morning. But before we do, I think we have a couple of niggly technical motions, which I believe are going on screen and which I've asked Councillor Troster to read.
Sure, I'll just do the therefore be it resolved. Oh, you need to scroll up so I can read that. Thank you. Therefore be it resolved that the following executive summary form part of the report. Approval is being sought to enter into front-ending agreement with Ashcroft Eastboro Incorporated, Ashboro, for the design and construction of the East Urban Community Pond 2, a sanitary sewer, and the oversizing of a storm sewer within the Navan Road right-of-way. These are in accordance with East Urban Community Phase 2 Community Design Plan, Infrastructure Servicing Update, Study Update, and the Environmental Management Plan that was issued in 2013. If approved, staff would be authorized to enter into a front-ending agreement and disperse funds in accordance with standard front-ending principles to an upset limit of $30,213,280, inclusive in construction, applicable land contingency, engineering, project management amounts, plus applicable taxes. This upset limit amount would be broken out as follows: $15,283,166 plus applicable taxes for the interim pond 2. Just over 6.8 million plus applicable taxes for the sanitary sewer, and approximately 8 million plus applicable taxes for oversizing of the stormwater. The actual numbers are there. The report would also allow for an interest payment of 4% from the date that an updated development charge bylaw is adopted, which would reflect the updated costs for the sanitary sewer until the planned payback of March 31st, 2027, provided the works result in the closure of Navan Road for 6 months or less. If the closure takes more than 6 months, the interest would be forfeited. Finally, the report would establish a value in principle for the land value of additional land required for the ultimate pond at $1,853,290 per hectare, and authorize staff to approve the required road closures associated with the works described in the report. Therefore, be it further resolved that document 2, front-ending agreement principles, first bullet in 3C, the words issuance of a commence work order by the city be deleted and replaced with commencement of work.
Thank you, Councillor Troster. My understanding is that obviously the second one of those is just a change in wording, and the first of those is because a report this length requires an executive summary, and it didn't have one. Mr. Moody, why are we here?
Chair, respectfully, I don't think I can say it any better than Councillor Troster just did. The applicant or the staff report that's before you is seeking approval to authorize staff to enter into a front-ending agreement with Ashcroft Eastboro Inc. for a total of just over $30 million, broken out as the councillor described into 3 components: an interim storm pond, an oversizing for a storm sewer, and a sanitary sewer. This is coming before you with respect to the timing and the urgency. It is tied to a resolution of issues with respect to the Ashcroft Eastboro development that has seen a number of delays, and we're seeking an opportunity to move forward to a resolution in that regard.
Thank you very much. I understand Mathieu Souquenant has signed up to speak as a public delegation. Okay, so he's joining us online. Bonjour, Monsieur Souquenant. Bienvenue au comité. Quand vous êtes prête, vous avez 5 minutes pour faire une présentation au comité.
Bonjour, est-ce que vous m'entendez bien?
Pardon?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
One second, just turn it. Hello?
Mr. Souquenant, your video is choppy. I don't know if maybe you want to turn your camera off and just save some bandwidth. It's starting to look a little smoother and you're on. Okay.
Can you now hear me?
We can hear you now. Merci. Whenever you're ready.
Perfect. Sorry, I was in the field. So hello, my name is Mathieu Souquenant. I just have a couple questions concerning this matter. So I have spoken with multiple business owners on Navin Road, most of them seasonal business owners. I will like to say like the market, Laverne Western Beef, the Mini Putt, Sandy's, Robert Plant, who hire over 150 people altogether. The full closure of Navin Road will be an extremely hard burden for us. All seasonal business, we had 3 or 4 closures in the last 5 years, either partly or repaving or stuff like that. We do understand that this needs to be done, but we want to make sure that the city is going to make everything possible to, right, help this business with signage saying we're open, and also be more open. Like, we've had wonderful discussions with Catherine Kitts. I want to do a shout out to her. She's been wonderful for this matter. But if it would be possible, like, example, less than 24 hours notice for this meeting is not acceptable. We would also like to know if this goes through, when would this construction start? Like, we need to know. We're going to have to lay off staff. We need to know when this will happen if this passes. Like, we can't wait 30 days before to know. Like, we need to a couple months in advance. So I want to know if the city is going to be able to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Souquenant. The committee doesn't answer questions directly, but I know your counselor is extremely concerned and she'll be asking those questions to staff as well. You have a couple of minutes remaining if you wanted to say anything else.
No, like I said, I just want to, like, my only concern is, of course, all the employees, all the seasonal businesses, full closure of a main street. Brian Colburn, which I'm guessing is going to be the detour route, is already backed up as of now. This is a main road. When it was one lane open, I think 2 or 3 years ago, we saw about a 40% decrease in revenue. So I cannot imagine what a full closure would do to all these businesses, employees, and all of that. So, like, the city has to put a plan in before approving this to help these businesses either put back the detour from Mardi to 10th line for them to pass on Navin Road, or to put signage saying that the businesses are open with the logos, and maybe help from the city staff to help promote that we're still open. Because this is going to be devastating. So I would like also to say that we have to remember that Orléans was founded on farmers. So it was all where the houses are being built right now is all prime agricultural land. This was all used for fruit and vegetable production from my grandfather, great-grandfather, and now it's all houses. So we have to think about where this comes from, right? So that's all I have to say. Sorry, I didn't have much time to prepare because I learned about this meeting at 9 p.m. last night, but that's what I have to say right now.
No, we appreciate your ability to make that presentation on very short notice, sir. Thank you very much. Are there any questions from members for Mr. Solpino? I don't see any. Thanks for your presentation again today, Mathieu.
Thank you. Yeah.
So we'll move into questions of staff. We have both Mr. Mark and Mr. Moody available to answer questions. I know Councillor Kitts will have lots. So, Catherine, I don't see anyone else.
Thank you. I am extraordinarily frustrated to be here. I'm not sure if I could put into words how angry I am at how this entire process has played out. You likely know people who bought their homes in 2019 have not been able to move in because of this dispute. And you all know how much development is happening in my ward. I work with all the major players. I have been advised by our legal counsel not to share my true thoughts on what it's the experience of working with this developer and their regard for the community. But I find it deplorable that these folks have been in this situation and have had no clarity. And I meant what I said when I said that I hope that this legal dispute would be resolved quickly. They deserve to have that clarity moving forward. But as you just heard the delegate share, this road closure needed to facilitate the work that needs to happen is going to have a significant impact on my community. And I also want to clarify something. At one point, Ashcroft shared with their purchasers that the reason that this had not proceeded was my opposition to the road closure, which is absolutely false. We are here today to negotiate a front-ending agreement. That was the holdup. And I also want to make it absolutely clear that the details that are in this front-ending agreement, the city's position has not changed on payment. So we could have been here months ago to discuss this because the city's position has not changed. We're not capitulating to a lawsuit. Anyways, I'm concerned about the impact this is going to have on my community and the lack of notice, particularly to local businesses, area schools, the community programming, and they have not been properly notified of this closure. So can you explain why we're here on such short notice?
Chairs, the resolution of issues is complex, and there are a number of issues that have been under discussion and a negotiation until early this week. And so the discussion has been ongoing, and to get to a point where there was an agreement on that resolution of issues has only come to place, I think, yesterday morning, if my timing is correct. And so we do want to make sure that we get before to take advantage of the time while council is on break throughout the summer, and in order to deal with to finalize the negotiations of the front ending agreement and all of the other steps that are part of that resolution of issues. The report that's before you today authorizes us to continue that work. I certainly empathize with the business owner that spoke and delegated to us today. The councillor has expressed those concerns previously to us, and so as a result of those concerns being identified early, we have been able to incorporate in that resolution of issues rather, a minimum of 30 days communication period, the requirement for a communications plan, which would include, signage and directional signage, but also just signage to ensure that people are aware that the businesses are open. It will include a public meeting, all with that minimum 30-day communication period. With respect to when the construction is expected to start, our latest communications with the proponent, there are a number of things that they need to get in order before they can pull the trigger on construction, including, finalizing an agreement with a contractor to deliver that work. So, as much as we would like to see this work on one hand start tomorrow, there's a number of steps that still have to be concluded before we can actually see construction happening and the closure take place. And we're happy to continue to communicate or start to communicate with the business owners as we get clarity on what that construction timeline is going to look like.
Okay, thank you for that. I don't feel like 30 days notice is sufficient. I will point to the Bank Street closure that's happening in Finley Creek. There were 5 info sessions and a year and a half of engagement before the closure. And I appreciate that that's different because that's city-led, but the impact to the businesses is going to be similar. So is there any latitude on that 30 days?
Mr. Chair, there were detailed negotiations between the developer and the city as to how we would go forward. And it was a 30-day period that's been incorporated into the understanding that's been arrived at between the parties.
And if we do not, what happens if we don't approve this today?
Mr. Chair, I'll confine myself to the legal matter. There is a lawsuit that's been launched by Ashcroft against the city. This resolution will result in the cessation of that lawsuit. And so if this doesn't go forward, the lawsuit will not cease. I'd leave it to Mr. Moody to speak on the impact of the development moving forward.
Chair, the Ashcroft Eastboro subdivision is a significant component of our growth plans in the East Urban community. There are a number of homes that have been constructed under conditional permits that are not able to be occupied as they do not have outlet. There are possibly and likely other homes that have been sold that are not able to move forward where construction has not started. So there are impacts, beyond just to the developer in this case that are part of our considerations.
Okay. I have worked extensively while we have been in this stalemate on the front ending agreement. I have worked extensively on trying to find alternatives to a full road closure. And I've been told that it is the only option. So can you explain a little bit why a full road closure is necessary?
Chair, there were works that were started a couple of years ago, and I apologize, I don't have the exact dates in front of me, but around 2022, there was work underway in the road allowance. There were considerable soils related issues where you were dealing with marine clay soils that were essentially coming up like almost in a liquid form, coming up through the bottom of trench boxes, making it an unsafe place to work. So they had to withdraw crews from the site at that time. That has led to additional, costs for the works, which has precipitated and fed into the issues that we're trying to resolve today. But with respect to working within a narrower road allowance, there is safety risk and difficulty in achieving the actual product that we want at the end of the day. We did look and explore in good faith with the developer an alternate alignment that would have required a crossing another party's property. Negotiations with that party ultimately failed and brought us back to the road allowance, which from a construction perspective, due to the soils in place, requires a full excavation rather than the use of trench boxes in order to achieve the depth that the sewer needs to reach.
So this is a matter of safety for workers, not a cost savings or, making it more expeditious.
In fairness, there is one construction methodology dealing with directional drilling that could reduce the overall closure. The cost for that, and I don't have it right in front of you, I can find it, but it's approximately double what we're looking at. And there is not funding within the development charge background study to cover those additional costs. And it is ultimately unfeasible for the developer to proceed with that construction methodology.
So just for some additional context, this road was closed, as you heard, in one direction it was supposed to be 6 months. It turned into 9 months in 2022. And at that time I said, there's no way we can have even a closure in one direction. Again, you have to find an alternative route. And when they had to do remedial work earlier this year for that construction activity, they wanted to close the road in one direction, and I insisted that they maintain two-way traffic. It's because, I'll come back to my thesis that you hear me talk about all the time, there are no alternative routes. There are no alternative options for my community. The detour is going to send people to Bryan Coburn, which is operating over capacity. Go look at the TMP engagement survey, and the intersection of Mayor Blair and Bryan Coburn is failing today with today's volumes without diverting all that traffic. I genuinely don't understand how the traffic management plan is going to work. So when it fails, who do I go to? Who is responsible for mitigating that traffic?
Chair, we will be happy to work with our partners in transportation to look at any alternatives. Ultimately, with respect to traffic, a failure is not the same as when we're dealing with hard services where there's a defined capacity constraint that results in damage to property. It's, when an intersection, for example, fails, it means it takes longer to get through it. And so I don't know that I can sit here before you today and say that there will not be intersections that fail, but we are happy to engage with our transportation management colleagues to ensure that what is feasible is done to mitigate and try to temper the impacts that will be felt by this community.
Mayor Blair was just resurfaced last year. It will now bear the brunt of the truck traffic. So whose responsibility, if the road is damaged, whose responsibility will it be to repair it to its current condition?
Mayor Blair is an arterial road and is a responsibility overall of the city. And wear and tear on that road would be hard to define as far as, unless it was a definable act by an individual, it would be considered wear and tear on that road and would be addressed through life cycle in a normal manner.
Okay. I mean, I see other hands up. I'll leave it there and then I'll come back for wrap up. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I certainly don't pretend to be fully versed on this matter. Certainly, my colleague has, sounds like, been through a lot over many years, as have her residents. So what I'm focused on is having the best recommendation, the best option before us. It seems like that's what's before us now, but there are obviously some significant ramifications by going forward. Is it staff's opinion that if we accept their recommendation, local homeowners will ultimately be able to move in to their homes sooner than if we reject the staff recommendation? A lawsuit continues that could take quite a long time. Does staff believe that this would at least allow people to ultimately move in sooner rather than additional delays?
Regardless of the outcome of any lawsuit, this work will need to be done in order to provide an outlet for the stormwater for this subdivision. And as a result of, waiting to go through the entire time of waiting to go through a lawsuit or a legal process would be additional time
Right.
added to this.
But the lawsuit, from what I just heard, I believe you said would be dropped if this is council endorsed.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, what do we think the delta in time is between us, council approving this and this proceeding? Lawsuit gets dropped, work gets done, people move in versus rejecting this. Lawsuit continues. We don't know how long that could be. Is it an additional couple of years?
Mr. Chair, if this report is not accepted, we do not have a path forward.
Fair enough. Okay. Okay, I'll leave it there, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Curry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a disaster. I feel so badly for you, Councillor Kitts. It's terrible. I would never want to be dealing with this in my community. I don't think staff will be able to answer this completely, but we have had umpteen subdivisions built in this city. I don't know what umpteen number is, but many, many, many. We've done many roads. We've done many sewers, many stormwater systems. This is not obviously similar to others. When would we find out what the learning is here about what went wrong? That this, like the fact that people haven't lived in their houses for many years, that it's driving by. I read the article, Citizen article. Man's been driving by his house for years, unable to get into it. It's unbelievable, actually. So, what went wrong? And if we can't talk about that right now, when are we going to find out what actually went wrong here and what's our learning?
Chair, there are a couple of takeaways that I think are clear learning opportunities or things that we have already addressed from a procedural perspective that, have contributed in some way to the situation we're in today. And I apologize if this is a long answer or turns into a long answer to what the nut of it is a short answer. The city issues conditional permits for low-rise or high-rise buildings in an attempt to help to facilitate earlier construction while things are finalizing. In this situation, the conditional permits were authorized in advance of an outlet for the stormwater. There were provisions put into those conditions to protect the city at the time, including the use of sump pumps on an interim basis, the requirement that there be no occupancy until that outlet is ultimately constructed and in service, and that water service is not turned on until such time. In this situation, when they ran into the construction issues in the road and the challenging soils, that sort of threw everything off of the schedule that had been anticipated and hoped for when those permits were issued. The other thing that I think is a learning that we have taken measures to address is that the commence work order for the sanitary sewer was initially issued under the authority of the subdivision, despite the fact that there was a requirement for development charge funded projects or components to it. We no longer issue commence work orders where there are development charge related components through the subdivision. We will only do that when we have a signed front-ending agreement in place. And so that is something that has, that we are doing differently today than we did in this situation. The conditional permits would not be issued today without there being an outlet, and we would not have issued a commence work for that road. That doesn't negate all of the potential issues. And we have had issues in the past where, there have been delays through the process or through construction, but developers have a right to tentatively sell lots after draft approval. And the time between draft approval and registration is not necessarily defined. And so we have had situations in the past and may in the future where homeowners or purchasers have bought homes that are not yet constructed with an expectation of a closing date that may not be achieved. And so that is, something that our builder community, for the most part, tries to ensure that they don't go to sale until they're at a point where there is certainty. But that is a possible thing that we may see at some point in the future.
All right. Well, you know, when I think about meetings I've had with developers where they're saying, you know, Kathy, I think the city is just so ridiculous with all of its requests and, you know, all the things, the hoops we have to jump through. And, you know, I think all of us can now point to some of these examples to say, yeah, that's the reason why. You know, if you want to get in the same situation as this one, then just keep pushing me as a counselor to force staff to do something that's not within my control anyway. You know, so anyway, I appreciate that answer. I mean, that's all you can do. You know, change doesn't happen in the past, you know, so we move forward. But anything that can be done to help those business owners, I would strongly support. So I don't know, Councillor Kitts, if you have any thoughts later on about what might go on. I understand the 30 days is the 30 days, but if there's anything else that can be done to help them, I certainly look for that. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Curry. Councillor Dudas?
Yeah, I want to start by just making a quick comment. I want to applaud Councillor Kitts. This has been such a stressful file. It has lingered for far too long. This is years and years. This predates even me in this area. And I know that Mr. Moody has just explained the history. I'm aware of the history of it. I still can't wrap my head around how this has dragged on for so long and has turned into such an absolute mess. And to Councillor Curry's point, if we can't learn from this, we can't learn from anything. This has been one of the most historically dysfunctional projects that I have ever been aware of. And, you know, we just heard from one of the business owners, they've been through this already. And Councillor Curry, you asked, you know, Councillor Kitts to mention what she would suggest. My ask is that everybody listening to this meeting and all of us as councillors send customers to these businesses. You know, the only way that they're going to survive this very long duration of a closure is to have customers coming and buying their products and supporting them. And that's still barely going to get them over the finish line. So my question to staff, and, you know, once again, I'm being redundant because I know Councillor Kitts has done and asked all of these questions, but I just want to say this. This is to get people into their homes. And I absolutely feel for those folks. At the end of the day, when they put this road back together, does the local community get anything? I know when I had originally, you know, had questions about this file, I had asked if there could be a sidewalk put in, bike lanes. Navan Road is not a safe road by any definition at this point in time, unless you're in a vehicle. You couldn't walk along it. We had worked hard to get the road on the sides expanded to at least have some room for pedestrians. We're going to add new people to this community. This is a poor Band-Aid for folks who have to go through this closure, but is there any consideration by the developer to maybe add some pedestrian friendly elements to this road as a bit of a compromise, or are they not willing to negotiate on that at all?
Chair, I would love to be before you and tell you that we were going to have an urbanized cross-section when this is done. The Navan Road cross-section is currently a rural cross-section. There will be no enhancement through this project. It is simply installing a sewer and reinstating like for like. The staff did explore the potential of whether there could be an enhancement. Our urbanization of Navan Road is not identified in the Transportation Master Plan, and therefore there is no funding available for it through the Development Charge Background Study.
I so deeply feel for this community, for Councillor Kitts, and it's not just the adjacent businesses or folks living next to this, it's everybody in South Orleans. It's everybody in all of Orleans trying to get through what is literally a deficit of road networks, and now we've just lost another one. So I you know, frustration isn't the right word. Absolute disappointment in this whole process is not even, it diminishes how local councillors feel about this. And as I said from the very get-go, like, Councillor Kitts, you're made of steel, madame. I don't know how you're going through this, and I would like to say that all of us have your back and the community's back to whatever way this plays out. I know the work needs to be done, but if we can all support these local businesses, do whatever we can to not have this ever happen again in our city, that's probably the best course of action at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Tierney?
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I'll echo like everybody else. Obviously, Councillor Kitts has been working on this, keeping your community informed, and with such a small window. I understand lawyers run the world, so we're kind of in a pinch here. At the same time, without naming the company, I fear for a lot of things. I think we just want to get people into homes. We're in a bind. And if you've read recent reports of some of their other properties defaulting on loans and things, I couldn't imagine what would happen to all these homeowners if anything else went pear-shaped. So I think we're really hemmed in on what we have to do here. It's just unfortunate that we're put into this position. And, I don't think you can cast all industry with the same brush, but certainly this has not been a friendly adventure with this specific developer. So on that, I think I'm going to have to support it as much as we do have this major problem, but it will only be doubly impacted if things go even further pear-shaped and houses sit empty forever. So anyway, that's just my thoughts, Mr. Chair, and my thoughts are with Councillor Kitts on 6 months of pure hell.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tierney. I don't see any further hands up. Councillor Kitts, did you want to continue your line of questioning or wrap up?
Yeah, I think I asked my questions, but I do have some final comments. I mean, I feel completely handcuffed in this situation, not only because we are in a legal bind, we are considering a legal matter, but there is genuine care and concern for the people who are in this situation, the purchasers who continue to await delivery of their homes. I cannot imagine how stressful this situation has been for them. I've spoken to many of them. So I don't want to see that delayed further. But at the same time, there are livelihoods at stake. There are a number of seasonal businesses on this road that if the closure starts sooner than later at that 30-day mark, they will be impacted more than other businesses would because they rely on income in the summer months. And the traffic will be a disaster. When Councillor Dudas and I were confronted with the previous closure, we were deeply concerned, and that was a summer closure at the tail end of the pandemic. We are facing return to office this fall. The congestion in my community is untenable today. I cannot overstate that enough. And I would say I would love to send the thousands of emails I am going to get to Ashcroft's traffic consultants who advised on the traffic management plan, because it is not rooted in reality. It is not going to work. And I appreciate that there is a communications plan and a community session plan based on the feedback I shared with staff. I have spent countless hours on this. I know staff have too, and I know that they have negotiated an optimal outcome in terms of the legal implications and advancing this stalemate. But notice of this came forward yesterday evening. It's rising to council tomorrow. There was one business here today because they caught my Facebook post that I posted last night. I'm sure there would be many others if there was sufficient time. So all I can ask at this point is that between today and tomorrow, if we could get clarity on a construction start date, that the impact to the community and these businesses be carefully considered, and that other construction activity that is taking place in the community over the summer months be taken into account, and that a proper traffic management plan comes forward, and anything else we can do to support these business owners. But I mean, I'm at a loss on this one. I feel like it's a no-win situation, and I feel terribly for my community.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kitts. I don't see any other hands up. Bear with me just one moment. Okay, we're going to run through the recommendations separately. First, is the technical motion carried? Thank you. Councillor Kitts has indicated her desire to dissent on sections 5 and 6. Does anyone want to do a voice vote on that? I don't see any hands up. So is the report carried, noting the dissent by Councillor Kitts on 5-6? Carried. Thank you very much, colleagues. We do not have any in-camera items. There are no notices of motion. I don't have any inquiries, no other business. We are adjourned until Wednesday, August 28th. For those of us who are going to be joining Built Heritage, there are separate Zoom details for that meeting that you'll be able to find in your various channels. We're adjourned. Thank you very much, colleagues.